Hello. As that prayer song plays, I want to send out prayers for all people who have been suffering from domestic violence, people who have been suffering from mental health, and anybody that has gone missing or has been murdered. And above all, also, I want to put prayers out for yourself for being here today. And also, I want to put prayers for Mother Earth as well. So, welcome to Burn the Wagon, where we're here to burn the wagon that is colonialism, burn down capitalism, and burn down patriarchy. So today I'm going to have Irene join me, and we're going to have a discussion about all the stuff she's doing as an activist and as an artist. So yeah. Okay, I just sent the invite, so we'll join here shortly. So yeah. Hey,
Hi, Juan. How's it
how are you doing
going?
today?
Good, good. Excited for this.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Set up my camera a little bit. All right. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So, okay,
Awesome.
yeah. So, everybody that's just joining, this is Burn the Wagon, where we're here to burn the wagon that is patriarchy, capitalism, and colonialism. And we're having Irene on today. So, yeah, give yourself a little intro, tell people where you're from, and yeah, we'll go from there.
All right. Well, first, I want to say hey to my mom, who's already saying what's up in the chat, Claudia. So, for joining. And at first, before I introduce myself, I want to light a little sage. I want to give thanks to Creator for another day, another breath, another opportunity to be in community, even virtually. I feel very grateful for all the abundance that I've had and the privilege that I have to even be on here today to be sharing some palabras, some enseñanzas, things that have been shared and taught and passed down to me. So I want to just first and foremost give a lot of thanks. And yeah, thank you to everybody out there tuning in. And thank you to Juan for initiating this. I know that you've been holding it down with really engaging conversations and critical dialogue. And we need these spaces more than ever. So thank you.
Thank you,
And
thank you. Yeah, for it's our teachings have been passed down, through conversation and through oral teaching. So, and we're here in the future, so this is just another version of that. You know what I mean?
that's right. That's right. And I believe, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Irene, or Irene Juarez O'Connell, and identify as Chicana. My background, I'm Mexican Irish, and I'm also very connected to my Mexican indigenous ancestry. I feel I identify as a visual artist, as a community organizer, as an educator, as a cultural worker, and a youth advocate. So I do a little bit of everything, but my real passion is working with community, working with young folks in ways that we can uplift visions of liberation, visions of indigenous solidarity, indigenous land stewardship and land ownership. I really, I've had the blessing of working with an organization here in Santa Cruz County called Food What. That's pronounced Food What. And I get to farm with young people, and we get to kind of reevaluate, renegotiate, rediscover a healing relationship to land. So that's what I get to do here in Santa Cruz County. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
So, how long have you been doing that farming thing? Because that's a big thing, is getting back to the land and getting back to what we used to do, is just like farming and doing exactly what you're doing, is decolonizing and getting that land back. So how long have you been doing that with Food What?
Yeah, so this is my 7th year with Food What, and I was very interested in growing food and gardening before Food What, but Food What helped me understand the intersections between food justice, community justice, economic justice, and understanding the dynamics of land. I mean, especially here in Santa Cruz County, we're like in the salad bowl of America. so many acres of farmland are here, and we're the strawberry capital of the world, you know, right here in Watsonville. Strawberries and berries and apples that come out of Watsonville get transported all over the world. However, something that I learned very quickly as I joined Food What is that young people and families, and even the people who are harvesting those crops right here, don't have access to that produce, don't have access to the same kind of nutrition that you think that they would keep being here.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, obviously there's a whole lot we could talk about with commercial agriculture, extractive agriculture, and how it's connected to labor, immigration, racism, all of that stuff. But for me, it's holding that, and then also realizing, okay, well, what can I do with these two hands? What can I do right here in this town? And I feel that it's just having my hands in the soil, working with young people, and really letting the land do a lot of the teaching, letting the land do the healing. Right. So in our program, we create the container, right? We'll get the youth. We actually pay them for every hour that they're on the farm. They get paid $16 an hour. Everything that we
Awesome.
grow, we get to harvest and eat. So almost 100% of the food, of the produce that we grow, goes right back to the student, the youth, and their families. And then we also set up an affordable farm stand where we're selling everything for $1 a pound. So we want to start breaking down those barriers, because we see the rate of diabetes going up among young people, the rate of heart disease, you know, just things that could be completely preventable through diet.
Yeah, we have to, because the hot Cheetos and the sodas and all that stuff we have to redirect it from those things. So I know growing up for me, that's what it was, you know, people ate. That's what nobody grew vegetables, nobody grew any other food. So like growing up, we didn't know where any of that stuff comes from. And like you're saying, like most of the farms here it's a lot of farming land in California, but not even really knowing, and this is all the way up in Mendocino, not even really knowing where your vegetables really come from until I moved here to Santa Cruz, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff is going down. And somebody sent me a video of a Driscoll's packet, and there's English and then French. It's like, let's be honest, the second leading language spoken here is Spanish. It's not French. Like, why are we like putting that on the package, you know? So it's like, and like you said, these people that are picking this don't even have access to this food. So that's another thing to think about. And like, we can go on like this about all day, you know.
I just want to give a quick shout out to someone who actually went through the Food What program, who's here, and that's Uli, who's saying what up in the chat. So Uli was one of the folks who really, I think, took advantage of the space that Food What was, and saw the medicine that was there, just working with the land. So what up, Uli? Thank you for all the love and medicine down.
Uli's in here all the time. I love the support they give. I love it. Yeah. So you talked about working with the youth recently. You organized a mural downtown in the Santa Cruz beach flats, right?
Yes, that's right.
So
that is third.
let's talk about that. Yeah. Oh, there's a third one. Okay, let's talk about all three of those, and let's kind of group them all in one. So yeah, let's talk about the one that was most recent, down at the beach flats. And what was that a mural of? I remember it was an ocean scene for sure.
Yeah, I could probably bring the design, but it's also available on my feed to check out. But so that most recent one was in September of last year. I titled it Alintak, and it's almost a vision of what would happen if we were to rip up the concrete in Poets Park. So that's where it's located. It's in the beach flats in Poets Park. And it was a partnership with the Santa Cruz River, the River Council, because they want to bring awareness to the storm drains all throughout Lower Ocean, because of how connected the storm drains are to, of course, our waterways and the San Lorenzo River. So the idea was, you know, we keep those waterways clean. We have a more, I think, just like a clearer picture of how directly connected our human way of life is to the natural environment. So I envisioned, okay, what would it look like if we were to rip up the concrete and we could actually see an aerial view of what would emerge if the waterway was just allowed to do its thing, without a human intervention. It was just allowed to restore itself. So yeah, I had a water scene connecting the storm drain mural that's in the main park to the river, because that's actually the flow, like the direction that the water flows underneath all the layers of concrete.
Wow, that's crazy. And what this is like what ultimately got you into being an artist? Like, but way back, starting from the beginning.
Ooh, I mean, as long as I can remember, I identified as an artist. I think I was like 6 or 7, telling my family members I am an artist. And for me, I think I was very much inspired by people in my own family. My grandmother was a painter. She
Okay.
still does. I think visiting Mexico and seeing the big murals in Mexico, right? The Siqueiros, Rivera. I think seeing the way that murals were a testimony for the people. That is where education happened. I got to travel to Oaxaca, Mexico, when I had graduated, and I studied printmaking. And being in Oaxaca, I really saw, this is where the education of the people lives on the walls, especially if you consider, and this is true for here in the States too, but oftentimes popular education has to exist outside institutions because the people who are most impacted by decisions that come from the state and come from educational institutions aren't allowed in museums or universities. So we have to create our own spaces of education, and those are walls, those are you know streets. When I was in Oaxaca, I got super super inspired, and I just knew I wanted to be a muralist. I'm also very inspired by Judy Baca. If you don't know her, please look her up. She's one of the pioneer women Chicana muralists who created one of the world's longest murals in the Los Angeles River Basin. And it's a huge, long historical account of all of the things that have happened in the U.S. and in Los Angeles, and stories that we would get erased if we had to leave it up to the history books, right? So when I started learning more about Judy Baca and the way that she captured stories that I think would have gotten erased otherwise, like stories about the Elysian Park, like the Dodger Stadium, and all of the people who got displaced when Dodger Stadium was coming through, all of the racism endured by the Bracero program, like everything that, often we don't get to hear about exists in those murals, and it still lives on today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to ask about the mural that you were a part of in Los Angeles with IP Action, who you also have a workshop with tomorrow.
Yes, yes, I definitely wanted to amplify that. So
Absolutely.
IP3 stands for Indigenous Peoples Power, Indigenous People Power, and I think actually they were someone. I thought I saw IP3.
They were in here, yeah,
Awesome. So I got connected to IP3 back in, I think, 2018 or 2019. And I got to attend the action camp that was held near Boulder, Colorado. And it was amazing. I mean, it was so good to just be around. I don't know, I think there was like 75 of us or 100 of us. It felt like a lot, maybe something around there, but all Indigenous folks who are, you know, either have directly been on the front lines or are training to be on the front lines, um, and learning, like sharing skills around action. So there was 3 tracks. One track was around blockading, so how to blockade, how to build, you know, tubes and like chain yourself down, or arm locks. Another track was climbing. So that's actually the first thing that I got to do with IP3 was climbing. So climb training, learning how to work with knots and harnesses. I had the opportunity to practice tree climbing. And then the third track was creative resistance. So learning how to develop messaging, learning how to develop messaging and visuals so that you get your message out there in a way that is unavoidable. You have to see it, or small ways to disrupt business as usual. So from anything from making stencils to banners to even the logistics of like sewing a banner and grommeting a banner and weighing it down, and like if you were to do a banner drop or on a building or from a bridge, all of those practical tools and skills to make our actions powerful and effective, right? How many times have we seen protests or groups or gatherings and it's like not clear, like what are you protesting, or like what's going on, so there really needs to be strategy. We also talk about nonviolent direct action and strategy behind our actions. Like how are we gonna make sure that we're getting the publicity and the press, and we know that this banner is going to drop and there's weights so it doesn't flap in the wind, and then we have a coordinated front, right? We are all coordinated so that we can get our message across as powerfully as possible. So.
Absolutely. And where can people find these or sign up for these workshops?
Yeah, so because we're still in the pandemic, IP3 has moved its action training camp virtually, and that's actually coming up this week. So starting January 31st to February 4th is going to be all kinds of different trainings, and they're all, so go to @IP3action. Maybe you can like type it in the chat there. So @IP3action, registration is free, and yeah, there's some really incredible talks on there. I mean, everything from body sovereignty and consent to looking at the role of Black Indigenous activists, looking at, well, the one that I'll be working on is creative resistance. So a little bit of what I was mentioning, we'll be talking about how to make a stencil, how to make a lino block, a little bit about banners, a little bit about murals, and the power of community art practice.
Awesome. And they just commented, so if you guys want to go follow them, give them a follow for sure. So yeah, they said they can't wait to see you on this weekend. So yeah, definitely follow their stuff. Definitely follow everything that they're doing. And I wanted to get into the Dia de los Muertos offerenda that you recently did at the museum, because that's big and that's awesome. It was such an awesome event to be a part of, and I was there for the whole thing. And yes, let's talk about what I mainly want to get across to people is like the amount of the effort and the hard work that goes into doing these events, and the people that you brought together was amazing, because it was four different offerendas, right? And Uli was one of them who's in here showing support always. And yeah, let's just talk about that for sure.
That's right. Well, yeah, thank you. And thank you for being there. That was a really powerful event. So for those of you who are just tuning in, we're talking about the Santa Cruz Ofrenda, which happened at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History in downtown Santa Cruz in November. So we timed it to be opening around Dia de Muertos. And originally, the way it started was Luna and I. So I'll go back a little bit. So in the summer of 2020, right around the time that people were protesting the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many other unjust and unlawful deaths at the hand of police, people started taking posters and candles and flowers to the clock tower in Santa Cruz. And it just became this impromptu altar space. And it was so powerful because it wasn't necessarily coordinated by any one person. It was just this living embodiment of the immense grief that people were feeling, the immense anger and the rage, and just like the need for an outlet because we weren't hearing enough, of our perspectives in news outlets or media. And so it really was birthed from that space. And there was a group that was called, I think, Black and Brown Liberation Collective. They were kind of helping steward it and clean it up because, of course, unfortunately, we live in a town where white supremacy is very prevalent. And, there would be signs that said Black Lives Matter on that clock tower, and it would get vandalized. It would get, just horrible stuff. I remember there was a big banner about Tamario Smith, who was a young man, actually a former student of mine, who was killed, who was, mysteriously died in the Santa Cruz jail. There was a big, beautiful poster with his image and his name, and it just got torn down. And so, friend Luna and I said, okay, let's take this into a more structured, approach so that we can maintain the space, we can get hopefully some funding, and build programming around it. So that first year, in November of 2020, we just collected funds from community. We put money from our own pockets, and we built programming around it. So we did this beautiful event where we had drummers and singers, and we said prayers. We, brought medicine, and we just wanted to like uplift this space as a community altar space. We opened it up for poetry. We opened it up for testimony. And then we said, okay, we want to do this again next year. This time we actually approached the city of Santa Cruz because, and this is a lot of thanks to Luna, who really did the research, but realized that site in the clock tower was actually the space where London Nelson, who's one of like the city's benefactors and also a formerly enslaved person who came all the way from North Carolina, that's where he set up his farm stand. And after he died, it was unclear, but people took his inheritance and put it towards Santa Cruz schools, saying, oh, that's what he wanted to do. Although it's not clear really like was his will, but without London Nelson, without his farming and his giving food to the people and his support of education, Santa Cruz wouldn't be, what it is today. I really believe that. So Luna and I, we went to the city and we said, in the spirit of reparations, you all should be paying and offering support and funding for this kind of altar, and we want to do this in a significant way. So, and we also want to do this in an inclusive way, because it's not just for Dia de Muertos that we can make altars, and it's not just Mexican or indigenous people who make altars. In fact, Luna, she says, well, Black folks, they're indigenous to somewhere before they were removed from their lands and territories against their will, and there's still indigenous practices that live through the Afro-Indigenous community. And then we said, well, what about the API Pacific Islander community, the Chinese community, the Japanese community? Like, without those communities, Santa Cruz would not be what it is today. I mean, the Chinese immigrants who came in and laid down the railroad tracks, and then still to this day, like, are the reason why downtown Santa Cruz exists the way it does, because of a lot of the businesses and restaurants and entrepreneurial efforts. So we wanted to make sure that we were inclusive to all of the unheard voices and stories that exist in Santa Cruz even today, because really there's not really much outlet or space for people of color in Santa Cruz. So,
well, like you said, Santa
ahead.
Cruz is rampant with white supremacy. Oh, you're cutting up.
Absolutely.
Sorry. So yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, Santa Cruz, white supremacy is alive and well in Santa Cruz. Don't get it twisted. People think it's so progressive here. They think it's so liberal. But every day, Santa Cruz City Council stay making very racist and problematic, decisions, especially when it comes to the houseless community. Yeah, so yeah, we felt the need to create a space and carve it out. And as much of an uphill battle as it was, because let me tell you, it's not easy. We found partnership and home with the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. Originally, we wanted it to happen at the clock tower, but because of the rain and also because there was some challenges with the city, we said, okay, let's do it at the museum. And in a way, it was almost better because we got to make sure that the sacred objects that were on each altar were taken care of. They're indoors and protected. Yeah, so we had 4 beautiful altars, actually 5 for that week of Muertos, because so we had one that Uli created, and Uli represented, um, they had a beautiful medicine wheel and kind of represented like the local indigenous history. They created a timeline with branches of redwood and oak. It was so beautiful. And then Luna and Tatavia made a beautiful altar dedicated to the African and Afro-Indigenous lineages with beautiful quilts and candles and offerings. And then we had a group made up of various API folks who created an altar with a mandarin tree and golden folded cranes and images of art around, when there was last year when there was a couple of Asian elders who were targets of violence. There were some posters and images made of them that was included in the altar. And then I had the privilege to work with a team of 7 friends, and we built up a pyramid, a pirámide, of an altar dedicated to loved ones of people here, like relatives and community members here in Santa Cruz County and beyond.
That was a really good event, and also shout out to Luna, who just got a really big position at the museum, right?
That's
I
right.
can't.
She's
I,
now the resident historian of the museum.
that's right. That's an amazing position to have, and also definitely want people to go and check out Tamario Smith's story for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely a story that people should be more tuned into. For sure, yeah. And then on your altar, you had I saw it was a water jug that was representing for people that were passed away that were trying to cross the border. So my next question is like the ICE detention centers, and it's not only like the people trying to come from Mexico or El Salvador, places like that, but we're also seeing the Haitian people being whipped and chained there as well. So we can't forget about them. But I definitely want to talk about the main topic is the ICE detention centers here, in, mainly in the Texas border.
Yeah, yeah. Melt ice. I mean, it is so heartbreaking each and every day, to just know that there's still children, families, people, human beings locked up in cages, enduring some of the most, inhumane treatment, especially in a pandemic. I mean, there was a brief moment at the beginning of COVID that there was this glimmer of hope, like, okay, we're in pandemic. Is there going to be something, to mitigate the risk for people in the detention center? And unfortunately, not at all. People are in worse conditions than ever. And you're right, it's not just folks from Mexico or Latin America, it's people from the Caribbean, it's people from all over. Um, and I think it's just a testament to um, how like the two-party system is such a joke, right? Under Biden and Harris administration, there's still more and more people being deported and people being locked up in ICE detention centers. So I feel like if I could say anything, it's don't tune out. Don't think that just because it's no longer Trump that things aren't as bad as they ever have been. We still need to be putting pressure on this administration. We need to be putting pressure, um, on our own California governor to make sure that there's that there no funding is going to any ICE detention centers. I think in Santa Cruz, there we did make an effort to make sure that the police department was not collaborating with ICE. According to them on record, there is no ICE office in Santa Cruz County, and they don't pass off information. But you know, I don't really trust the word of police, so we
Yeah.
don't know for. But yeah, it's heartbreaking, and at the end of the day, it's just very very deep racism, and I don't know. Really, like, I think we just need to stay being vocal and stay being loud about it, and not forget now that there's a new administration.
Yeah, and it's kind of like because the new administration has come in, it's kind of taken a back seat to other things, but like you said, we have to stay tuned in. We have to stay, and that's why I kind of like, I know it's a hard topic to talk about, but we have to continue talking about it because it's still happening. Yeah,
Mm.
there has been some families that have been reunited, but like you said, there are still families that haven't, and
Right.
they don't know when they're going to be they don't know when they're going to be let out. They don't know what circumstances their families have to go through to let them out. They don't know what prices are going to be having to be paid to get their families out. Because I had a friend, his son had run into this situation where he was in a detention center, and they had to pay up to get him out. They had to pay something of, it was 10,000 up front, like to start off with, and then all the lawyer fees to deal with the situation ended up being around 27,000. And
Wow.
who has the money to deal with that? Even if you're not, even I don't, and I'm a citizen of this country, and I don't have the money to deal with that type of situation, and I don't know how I'm gonna get it. And it's just heartbreaking that people leave certain situations to come here for a better life, and then like you said, they get treated in such ways in these detention centers that are just inhumane, and it's just insane that it's just continuing to happen. And
Yeah,
we have to continue to talk about it because we can't get swept under the rug because it's a new administration.
that's right. That's right. And I think right now, also DACA is kind of in the threshold because there's not been really any clear um, plan from the Biden administration about a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients. And it's terrifying to be living in this country and not knowing, are you going to be able to have the right to work? Are you going to, be able to go to school and apply for loan or apply for financial aid and all that? Um, and will DACA be discontinued? Because if in the next election, a Republican or conservative gets elected for office, then there's very little chance that that conversation for a path to citizenship will get reinvigorated. So it's a very, very challenging time, for people who are undocumented in this country.
Absolutely, and I kind of want to ask you about a question, campus women care that I was looking at your Instagram. Are you and the work that you do with? Are do you work for them, or is that something that you created?
Oh yeah, so Campesina Womb Care is something
Yes.
that I created. My good friend Maria, who is a nurse midwife and traditional midwife here in Santa Cruz. Honestly, that was something that was really birthed from Maria's heart, and I showed up to uplift and help make it into a ongoing mutual aid effort that really blossomed into a community-wide effort and project. So it began in April of 2020 when some folks were getting the stimulus checks. Um, and Maria it primarily works with campesina women, farm worker women in Watsonville. And we were talking about it. We're like, wow, like considering everything that those communities have to endure already, even before the pandemic, but they're most susceptible to be exposed to COVID. A lot of families are living in very small, close quarters, multiple families per unit. They're working, you know, regardless, right? They still have to show up to work. And many of them, because they're undocumented, and also many of them are recently arrived from their pueblos in Mexico, and oftentimes don't even speak very much Spanish. They're still speaking their indigenous language of Mixteco, Zapoteco, Triqui. So they're not accessing adequate healthcare at all. In fact, the opposite. They face so much racism, even within the healthcare clinics, and especially the Watsonville Hospital. They face so much racism that their risk factors are just like through the roof. And they don't receive any of that economic aid at all. So it really started with us realizing, okay, we want to help women. We feel connected to working with women because she's a birth worker. I'm also training to be a doula and birth worker. So we said, let's support women how we can. We're going to put together bags with cash, with menstrual products, with soap, with masks, with things for the kids, you know, whatever we could round up from our community. So we put a call out and said, hey, who has, you know, things that they could offer? And the donations just poured in. I mean, I was blown away at the community abundance, and just like the graciousness that people kept showing up with. We were getting, eventually we started opening it up to like baby carriers and maternity clothes and, you know, stuff to support women who are postpartum, specifically farm working women who, you know, still had to find time to breastfeed, even though they were working in the fields, right? So yeah, Campesina Womb Care. I think over the course of the 10 months that we were really active, it was like close to $9,000 that we were able to distribute to the community. We put a $20 bill in every bag, and we were giving out about 120 bags every single month.
Wow.
So yeah, it's definitely not enough. Structural change. We need labor laws that protect undocumented farm workers, but you know, it was just a way to get like direct assistance into the hands of farm working women.
That's awesome. And what you said that some people don't even speak Spanish. I hadn't realized that. I had gone on a and helped feed some people in the fields, and I hadn't realized that. I was trying to speak like some Spanish that I know, and some of the people were like it was broken because it was like you said, they're speaking the indigenous language, and most people there were from Oaxaca. So that was something
Yeah.
that blew me away. Is that you know, they're here working and having to deal with the language barrier of like two different, because in these fields you're, you know, having people speak Spanish and people that aren't, like, it's, and then the English part of the country, you know, that's such a wild thing to think about. And you know, they just want to come here for a better life and to work and, you know, be happy, and that's the main thing they want to do is just be happy. And people don't kind of get that, but yeah.
Well, I think that if they had the option, they wouldn't want to leave their pueblos. I don't think that I mean, in some respects, yes. Like, I think that the migration is natural and people should have the freedom to move. I mean, people have been moving around this continent for millennia, you know. But I do think that we should begin to frame people who come to the US for work, and often extremely low wage work, is because they're economic refugees, that they've been displaced out of their country, out of their pueblos. And it's directly connected to policy decisions that the United States has made, right? If we go back to Nafta in 1994, NAFTA, the North Atlantic Trade Agreement, was made up of the US, Canada, and Mexico. And they just decided, okay, free trade. So that means that US investors could speculate, and the Mexican government could privatize certain industries, meaning that corn was, you know, it was sold at a way, way, way lower value than it was worth. And it, the corn that was grown in Mexico no longer was being used to feed people in Mexico. It was being exported to the US or exported elsewhere for a super low
Yeah.
cost for investors, for foreign investors. Yet it completely robbed an entire nation. If folks don't know about the Zapatistas, I highly encourage everyone to go learn about the history of the Zapatista movement, because on January 1st, 1994, they were in such strong opposition to Nafta policies that they organized a brigade that went from the mountains of Chiapas in southern Mexico all the way to the capital to show up in as a united front, as an army. And they were just had wooden guns, right? They're poor, like, humble folks from the mountains, yet they all were standing in unity, knowing that these decisions were going to especially affect indigenous communities throughout Mexico and throughout Latin America.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, I've heard about them, but I haven't read too much of it. That's an amazing. They just went and stood up for what they believe in, man. And that's we need to do that. We need to continue to do that. I know it sucks to have to continue to fight, and like we still have to. There's continue to do this to us, them as being the government. But yeah, we have to continue to fight and think about the 7 generations coming after us, because yeah, it sucks, but it's gonna continue, and until we really like more conversations, like, and more things happen like this, and more people like us have to be into positions. Again, it sucks to have to be a part of these 2 wings and these 2 parties, but I think, in my personal opinion, that to change things, we really have to go into and get in the inside. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And because that's the only way we were going to get change, and like we need more people like Deb Holland and people like that in positions, like, because as much as it may suck to be a part of these 2 parties, or to these two wings that are attached to the same fucked up bird, that's the only way this bird, we're going to kill this bird or get this bird eradicated, you know what I mean, is to join it and infiltrate it in that way. But and that's just my opinion.
Totally.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
a lot, because I sometimes they think, well, I think it's just rotten to the core, and sometimes you have to just burn down the orchard, like you say, burn the wagon. Because I think we saw recently, when there was people who were choosing not to work, strikes work. I think that if we could actually get organized, we could shut the system down. We could get things to stop to a grinding halt, and demand better wages, better conditions. I feel like if we play the long game with the getting people in office and voting and stuff, that's one way, but we have to have multiple approaches. And I think one really, really key element to all of this is we have to organize. We have to get organized as a community. And I know nowadays it feels like there's more separation, and it's hard to, it's so exhausting. A lot of us are super burnt out and feel like we're just underwater. But if we want anything, like, organizing and direct action gets the goods, right? We sometimes have to take the risks, and calculated risk, I'll say, to shut shit down. Like,
Yeah.
maybe blockade a highway, or blockade, an event where a politician is going to speak, or do a huge banner topper. Thinking strategically. I think that's something that I really want to put my energy into, is like, okay, how can I get strategic with my community about pushing for what we want? Because I think voting is one way, and being in office is important, especially when it comes to local offices. Like, I want to uplift my friend Kayla Kumar and people who are working on the empty house tax. So please go check out at Empty House Tax. People who are organizing to make local measures happen and local policies happen, like that is so key. Like we have to get involved. I think it's important for us to find our peoples and again, organize, organize, organize.
And like Tyree says, it all happens locally. You know, we have
Yeah,
to start locally, and that's another shout out to Tyree, who actually connected us, and who actually connected me to the radio show. And yeah, I just love what he's doing with everything. So I try to give him love all the time. But yeah,
yeah, Ty-
at this time, I love Tyree, man. At this time, I give you the space to just kind of amplify if any topics I didn't bring up or any other events you want to continue to talk about, like the one coming up tomorrow. Is it tomorrow?
yeah. So the first session is Monday from 11 to 12:30, and then the next following session after that is Wednesday and Friday, again at 11 to 12:30 for the creative resistance training through IP3.
Okay, and go follow them IP3 on Instagram, right?
Yeah, at IP3 Action.
Okay, cool. And then is there any other topics that you wanted to bring up and let people know about out there?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. So one, I'm an ambassador with the Arts Council. And right now the Arts Council is receiving or is open to receiving grants. So for any of you listening who are in Santa Cruz County and consider yourself an artist, especially an artist of color, and just need a little bit of funding to make your vision happen, please get in contact with me because right now is a really great time. The application is going to be probably the simplest it will be for a long time. So I would love to help folks apply for art grants because I really think that artists of color need to take the lead, right? Because artists are not only it's not about making things beautiful. It's about pushing a vision. It's about expanding narratives. It's about incorporating histories and ideas. And I really want to uplift artists of color in Santa Cruz County. And then the
Absolutely.
other thing, yeah, so sorry, there's one more thing. So for those of you who are interested in connecting more to Indigenous practice, every Thursday night at Barrios Unidos in Midtown in Santa Cruz, there's a Danza de Concheros dance group that is, I think we're taking a little break right now to wait for our Omicron to chill out. But yeah, it's a group of indigenous Mexica dancing. It's called Danza de Concheros. So it's a really unique space. There's not really any Aztec dance happening in Santa Cruz. And so,
That's awesome.
no, not really. And so this is an opportunity it's open to anybody. It's free. I would follow, maybe I'll put in the chat right here to follow Manuel Naucampa for updates because that's who leads the danza group. So if you're interested in learning about danza or you're learning about indigenous spirituality that comes from the areas around the Valley of Mexico, please join. I think that would be really awesome if more people knew about that space and could access this, just a little bit of culture throughout the week.
Absolutely, that's awesome. I had no idea that was going on. You said that's Thursday. At what time?
Thursdays from 6 to 8:30.
At Barrios Unidos.
Yes, that's
So
near across the street from Walgreens on SoCal.
and definitely check them out on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me today for the conversation. It was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing and for the youth, for the women, for the future, for everything. So thank you for your words. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you for making the space and keep up the great work you're doing too.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
See ya. Okay, thank you everyone for that join. Thank you for Irene for joining today. Thank you for everyone that stuck through, and thank you for everyone that's going to be listening to the future. And thank you for joining Burn the Wagon, where we're here to burn the wagon that is colonialism, burn the wagon that is capitalism, and burn the wagon that is patriarchy. So thank you guys very much for joining me, and peace and love.